Installing software on your phone used to be a nightmare. You would connect your phone to a computer, download files from sketchy websites, and hope nothing broke. But then the App Store changed everything, from a revolutionary idea to a trillion-dollar ecosystem. This is how the App Store took over the world. On July 10, 2008, the App Store launched with iPhone OS 2.0. There were 500 apps available day one, and the variety was incredible. There were games like Super Monkey Ball and Crash Bandicoot, productivity apps like Things and OmniFocus, and social apps like Facebook and MySpace. Back then, apps weren't too expensive. They were either free or ranged between 99 cents to $9.99. Even though there was an app called I Am Rich that cost $999 and did basically nothing. But for the first time ever, you could browse a catalog of software on your phone and press download. It was like magic. Because for context, installing software on Windows Mobile required ActiveSync, a desktop computer, and a lot of patience. Whilst installing apps on BlackBerry meant navigating carrier app stores with limited selection. The iPhone App Store was seamless. And in 2008, the early App Store had a simple business model. There were free apps that were supported by ads, or just free because developers wanted presence on the platform. And there were obviously paid apps, but there were just one-time purchases. If you paid $2.99, you owned the app forever. But developers quickly discovered a problem, that people wouldn't pay $4.99 for an app they'd never tried. So the solution was light versions. These light versions had limited features and a paid full version. Some examples included Angry Birds Lite, which was free, then a paid version of 99 cents, and Plants vs. Zombies Lite, then the paid version, which cost $2.99. This was the strategy before in-app purchases, and it dominated the early App Store. Nearly every popular paid app had a light companion. It worked because the psychology was perfect. It was essentially try before you buy. There was no risk. If you liked the light version, paying a few dollars felt like nothing. However, in October 2009, Apple introduced in-app purchases with iPhone OS 3.0, and this really was the turning point. Early in-app purchases were simple. You would buy more levels in a game, unlock a premium feature, or purchase additional content. But developers quickly realized you could make an app free and monetize inside it. Why charge $2.99 up front when you could make it free and sell $1 power-ups to a much larger audience? By 2010, the shift had begun, and revenue exploded. Free apps with in-app purchases made more money than paid apps ever did, but the users hated it because it started the era of pay-to-win gaming. But there was no denying the results, that in-app purchases made developers significantly more money. And in February 2011, Apple introduced subscription billing. Before this, in-app purchases were one-time transactions, but subscriptions meant recurring revenue. Media apps jumped on this immediately. Things like newspapers, magazines, and streaming services would ask for a subscription of $9.99 per month. Initially, Apple's terms were controversial because they took 30% of subscription revenue and required that subscriptions be offered through the App Store at the same or better price than anywhere else. Subscriptions would eventually become the dominant monetization model, but in 2011, they were just beginning. The early App Store was games and utilities, like Angry Birds or Fruit Ninja. They were fun, but not essential. But as time passed, apps stopped being entertainment and became infrastructure. Uber is the perfect example. It would be impossible without the App Store. Uber requires things like GPS location tracking in real time, push notifications to alert drivers and riders, and in-app payments processed securely. None of this was possible before Apple. Uber couldn't exist on early smartphones. It required the exact combination of hardware and software that Apple had built. Uber's valuation hit $50 billion by 2015, while Lyft reached $15 billion. DoorDash, Postmates, and Instacart, entire companies built on the foundation of App Store infrastructure. However, Apple also destroyed some industries too. The rise of apps like Instagram and Snapchat made point-and-shoot cameras irrelevant. In 2010, 110 million digital cameras were bought, but by 2016, that number had dropped by 80%. Instagram and Snapchat proved that the camera wasn't hardware anymore. Filters, editing, and sharing were all built into an app that lived in your pocket. Why would you carry a separate camera when your phone has Instagram? Why buy a $200 point-and-shoot when Snapchat filters were free and fun? And during this time, the App Store had a design overhaul. The new design emphasized visual assets, bigger screenshots, featured app banners, and clearer category browsing. It was a subtle evolution, but it showed Apple was taking the App Store's presentation seriously. And more importantly, it introduced Genius Recommendations, an algorithm that suggested apps based on what you already owned. Because discovery was becoming a problem. With hundreds of thousands of apps, how do users actually find good ones? Genius Recommendations were Apple's first attempt at solving this. Second was adding an Explore tab to browse sections for the best new apps and best new games. And third was app bundles, where developers could package multiple apps together at a discount. Apple also introduced search ads. For the first time, developers could pay to appear at the top of search results. This was controversial because some saw it as Apple monetizing discovery, but others saw it as a necessary way for developers to compete in an overcrowded marketplace. Regardless of opinion, search ads worked. Developers paid because they got results. Apple made money, and users saw more ads, I guess. But as good as the App Store was, there was also more controversy. From day one, Apple took a 30% cut of every app sale and in-app purchase. For a 99-cent app, Apple keeps 30 cents and the developer gets 69 cents. For a $9.99 in-app purchase, Apple keeps $3 and the developer gets $6.97. In 2008, when apps cost 99 cents and the App Store was new, 30% seemed reasonable. Apple provided the platform, the payment processing, and the distribution. By 2020, when developers were making billions, 30% felt like extortion. Spotify was particularly vocal, saying, "We're paying Apple 30% to compete with Apple Music. Apple doesn't pay that tax. How is that fair?" Netflix stopped allowing in-app subscriptions entirely, and they forced users to subscribe on the web to avoid Apple's cut. Epic Games decided to fight. On August 13, 2020, Epic Games pushed an update to Fortnite that bypasses Apple's payment system. Instead of Apple processing payments and taking 30%, Epic offered a direct payment option at a 20% discount. Apple immediately banned Fortnite from the App Store. Epic filed a lawsuit the same day. Their claim was that Apple runs an illegal monopoly. The App Store has no competition, and the 30% commission is anti-competitive. Then in 2021, Apple launched App Tracking Transparency. For the first time, apps had to ask permission to track users across other apps and websites. A simple pop-up, allow or ask app not to track. And most users chose ask app not to track. This single feature destroyed business models overnight. Facebook estimated it cost them $10 billion in lost revenue in the first year. Their entire advertising model was built on tracking users across the web, but now they couldn't. Small businesses that relied on Facebook ads saw their costs skyrocket because targeting became less effective and return on investment plummeted. Apple's reason was for privacy, and users should be able to control their data. People saw it as Apple stopping competitors because Apple's business didn't rely on third-party tracking. This tracking feature proved Apple had the power to reshape the entire internet economy with a single software update, with no approval or warning. And lastly, in 2024, the DMA forced Apple to allow alternative app marketplaces in the EU. For the first time since 2008, you could install apps on an iPhone without using the App Store. Epic Games Store for iOS launched in the EU. Alternative payment systems became legal. Installing apps from outside the App Store was finally possible. Apple complied, but barely. They created so many restrictions and fees that most developers stayed with the App Store anyway. But as of 2026, Apple has over 2 million apps available, over $1 trillion paid to developers since launch, and 650+ million weekly visitors to the App Store. The business model is dominated by subscriptions, unlike 2008, where it was dominated by light versions, which don't exist anymore. People ask the questions, could a smartphone become a platform for third-party software, and could developers make money without traditional publishers? And the App Store answered yes to all of those questions. In 18 years, it created trillion-dollar industries. But the App Store isn't perfect. The 30% fee is controversial, and subscriptions have gotten out of hand. The App Store is the most important software platform in history. It changed how humans communicate, work, travel, and live. It was the platform that proved Steve Jobs right when he said, "There's an app for that."
because now there literally is.